The storm above New Carcinia had lasted 3 days. Currents tore through the streets like angry ghosts, dragging banners and debris through the coral spires. Everywhere, the resin shimmered faintly under emergency lighting, sealing cracks in the infrastructure even as it poisoned the ones who depended on it. In a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of an old observatory, a relic from the age of exploration, when curiosity had not yet been criminal, 5 figures gathered again. Krill, newly molted and still translucent. Scuttle, burdened by documents that glowed faintly with forbidden ink. Chitin, half machine, half fossil, his bioluminescent sensors dimmed to stealth. Barnaby, the former soldier whose massive claws twitched in restless guilt. And Coralia, bruised, newly freed from the detention pods by supporters and admirers, her coral still shedding faint light like memory refusing to die. They formed a circle around a cracked glass sphere that once charted the stars. Now it reflected only the city above, flickering in distorted fragments. Scuttle spoke first. His voice sounded like rock grinding against rock. "I have proof," he said, laying the scrolls upon the ground. "Treaties. Financial codes. Prawnald's signature in everything." The old crab unrolled the kelp sheets, revealing glowing lines of mimic script beside corporate sigils. 5 years ago, the consortium signed peace with the mimic collectives. Together they built a polymer to stabilize shell rot, open source, self-renewing. But when they discovered they could not control its distribution, they buried it, and buried those who remembered. He looked to each of them in turn. "The resin formula we use now? A corruption of mimic science. Its purpose is dependency." Krill nodded slowly. "I saw it in the trenches. The old ocean showed me. The resin is fear made solid." Chitin's eyes flickered through spectrums invisible to others. "Chemical analysis confirms," he said. "The molecular lattice contains mimic RNA sequences. The so-called purity barriers are in fact dispersion systems, devices for slow saturation." Coralia's claws tightened. Then every mural they destroyed was right. Every color they outlawed was warning them. Her voice cracked with fury. "We are killing ourselves to stay beautiful for our masters." Barnaby shifted uneasily. "If this is true, and I believe it is, then every arrest I made, every raid I led, was murder by another name." He bowed his head, the armor plates along his neck creaking. "I served a lie because I feared chaos. But order built on rot is already chaos." Silence filled the chamber, heavy and electric. Through the cracks in the ceiling, bioluminescent rain leaked in, trailing slow spirals of light that painted their faces in ghostly hues. Krill looked up at it and said quietly, "The old ocean called it a molt. The reef must shed its shell or drown in its own stagnation." Scuttle clicked his claws. "Philosophy's a fine current, boy, but how does it turn the tide? The consortium controls the resin, the guards, the propaganda, the food lines. You can't fight hunger with poetry." Chitin tilted his massive head. "Incorrect. Patterns collapse when tension exceeds stability. If we increase informational entropy, if enough minds realize contradiction, the system will self-destruct from cognitive overload." Barnaby frowned. "In plain speech?" Coralia smiled faintly. "He means truth. Not whispered, not painted in secret, but shouted in color across every wall, in every market, every clinic. Flood them with pattern until the lie can't find a place to hide." Scuttle grunted. "Information alone won't stop the resin's spread." Krill reached into a pouch and withdrew a small shard of the mimic polymer, iridescent, alive with faint inner light. "I took this from the trench," he said. "The mimics designed it to replicate symbiotically with coral. It can neutralize the resin if released into the water. Chitin's eyes widened. A viral antidote. Not a virus, Krill said softly. A song. It wants to spread, but not to kill, only to teach. Corelia brushed her claws over the shard. It glows like a heartbeat. Barnaby's voice rumbled. If we release it, the consortium will call it infection. They'll purge the whole reef. Then we release it everywhere at once, Krill said. Every clinic, every barrier vent, every resin factory. Make the lie impossible to contain. Scuttle stared at him, incredulous. You're talking about dissolving the system itself. Yes, Krill replied, and there was a calm certainty in his tone that frightened even him. Because the system is the disease. They debated through the night, voices rising and falling like tides. Scuttle, pragmatic, feared chaos. Chitin, analytical, calculated probabilities with dispassionate precision. Barnaby, the soldier, longed for redemption more than victory. Corelia, visionary, dreamed in symbols rather than strategies. And Krill, the soft-shelled heretic, became their center, not through command but through gravitas. When dawn light filtered through the broken dome, they reached consensus, not on certainty, but on necessity. The plan, Scuttle summarized, is threefold. First, distribute the truth. Corelia's colors, my documents, Chitin's data, all merged into one undeniable pattern. Second, disrupt the resin supply by introducing the mimic compound into the vents. Third, seize the broadcast towers to replace Chirple's voice with our own. Barnaby flexed his claws. And if we fail? Krill met his gaze. Then the reef will still remember that someone tried to molt. Corelia touched the glowing shard again. And maybe the current itself will carry it onward. They clasped claws in the center of the circle. The glass sphere between them began to glow, not from any external source, but from resonance. Their combined pulse set the chamber alight in fractal patterns, spiraling upward like a map of possibility. Scuttle's voice trembled. May the old ocean forgive us. Krill shook his head gently. The old ocean doesn't forgive. It flows. As they left the chamber, the storm above began to break. For the first time in years, shafts of natural light pierced through the city's upper currents, touching the towers of the porcelain throne. The light refracted through resin panels, splitting into a spectrum of colors that no one had seen since before censorship. Citizens paused to watch, uncomprehending. It was only sunlight, and yet it looked like prophecy.